Does anybody wish to address council for this issue? Does anybody wish to address council against this issue? And do any council members have any questions or comments? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Second, Mr. Palmer. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Where's my notes here? 6:55. Welcome for a public hearing on September 21st, 2021 to consider the rezone of Deer Ridge Mobile Home Park located on East Melrose Avenue from MH Mobile Home to M2 Multifamily High Density for the property situated in the city of Findlay via ordinance number 2021-083. Is anybody here to speak for this? Is anybody here to speak against this? Does city councilmen and ladies have any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Mr. Palmer, second Mr. Greeno. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. of Findlay City Council on September 21st, 2021. We will start tonight with the roll call.
Mr. Greeno.
Here.
Mr. Haas.
Here.
Mr. Hellman. Mr. Niemeyer.
Here.
Mr. Palmer.
Here.
Mr. Russell.
Here.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Here.
Mr. Slough.
Here.
Ms. Warnicki. Here. Mr. Wobser.
Present.
Okay, Mr. Hellman emailed me earlier to let me know that due to some temporary health reasons, he was not going to be able to make it tonight. Mr. Slough?
I would make a motion to approve the absence of Mr. Hellman.
Second, Mr. Greeno. All those in favor of excusing Mr. Hellman, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? He is excused. So tonight we have some special guests to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We have Lauren Wells, Sean Rice, and Richard Rice from Troop 338 who are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. These young gentlemen are going to stay this evening. They are working on their communication merit badge, and so they will remain in tonight's meeting. So if you get a chance afterwards, make sure you say hello. I will entertain a motion for the previous city council meetings. Mr. Slough.
I'd make a motion to approve the September 7th minutes from the regular session of council.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of accepting the previous city council minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. They are accepted. Mr. Russell, do we have any add-on replacements or removals from tonight's agenda?
Yes, we have plenty of them. We have a letter from Service Safety Director Martin concerning fire department pumper trucks, adding that to the reports of municipal officers and municipal departments. We have a committee of the whole report concerning the executive time proposal and adding that to the committee report section. We have an Appropriations Committee agenda and report concerning the purchase of the fire truck, and they're adding that to committee reports. And we have ordinance 2021-096, which is the purchase of a pumper of a fire truck. And I would move that they be added on to the agenda.
Second, Mr. Slough. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of adding the aforementioned items, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. They are added. We have no proclamations. We have no recognition or retirement resolutions. We have no oral communications, petitions.
A zoning amendment request from Tella Incorporated for the Park Street Oakdale Avenue from Van Horn Hoover and Associates on behalf of Tella Incorporated and Terrence Connor to change the zoning from I-1 light industrial to R4 duplex triplex high density.
Questions or comments? This will be referred to the City Planning Commission and the Planning and Zoning Committee. We have no written communications, reports of municipal officers and departments.
Officer shareholders disclosure form from the Ohio Department of Commerce Division of Liquor Control for Main Street Deli of Findlay LLC, located at 513 to 515 South Main Street and Patio, for a D5 liquor permit. The check of the records show no criminal record for those who applied.
Mr. Slough. Second, Mr. Palmer. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor that no objection be filed, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. No objection will be filed.
Findlay Municipal Court Activities Report for August 2021.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Summary financial reports as of August 31st, 2021.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Letter from Service Safety Director Martin regarding the waiving tap fees for Blue Bonnet Bittersweet Sanitary Sewer, project number 356-01200.
Questions or comments? Mr. Greeno.
Yeah, I just kind of want to give a little background on this. We had several water and sewer meetings and to discuss this. What had happened is we actually installed a new sewer in this area, and we were under the understanding that people would not have to hook onto this immediately. And then once this was put in, the health department sent out letters saying that they had to hook in within a year. So this just ended up being a lot of miscommunication. I hopefully, with the discussions that we've had with the health department, the city administration, and other city councilmen, that we have got this straightened out for the next time around. So this is what this letter is about, and just wanted everybody to know that I support this 100%. So,
Mr. Russell.
And to further make this interesting, this area is in Liberty Township. It's not in the city of Findlay. So we are waiving fees for folks who are not residents of the city. And that's just the level of confusion that this situation enacted. And understand, it is in our community, county's, watershed's best interest to take folks who are on septic systems, especially ones that are failing, and get them on our sanitary system. And so it's our long-term interest to continue to do projects like this, and we're going to continue to see projects like this where we will extend our sanitary and have folks, most likely not in the city, given the opportunity to hook on. We don't want this to be a precedence. We should not be. This is really a very unique case that makes us recommend that we waive the fees. And it's still a tough pill to swallow, but this is it's because it is in our best interest, and it's in a kind of a sense of fairness to the residents of this area. That's why, at least why I voted in favor of recommending this to the full council, and hope council would approve.
Any other questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
Board of Zoning minutes as of August 12th, 2021.
Questions or comments? Minutes to be filed.
Treasurer's reconciliation report for August 31st, 2021.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Letter from Police Chief Ring regarding grant from the Findlay Hancock County Community Foundation for an automated external defibrillator, AED.
Questions or comments?
Can you get that out?
Letter to be filed.
Monthly, August 2021 monthly budget summary from Mayor Mern.
Questions or comments? Budget summary to be filed.
Letter from Attorney Law Enforcement Division Program Grant for the Family Resource Center's coordinator salaries and expenses.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
A letter from Fire Chief Eberly regarding
Letter to be filed.
letter from Mayor Mern regarding airport director appointment. This does require council's confirmation.
Mr. Wobser.
I'd make a motion that Amanda McGee this appointment be approved by council.
Second, Mr. Schindeldecker. Discussion. Mr. Russell.
Would somebody in the administration want to give a little bit more background about Amanda?
Yeah, so as stated in the letter, but also just to elaborate, Amanda unfortunately wasn't able to be here because of prior commitments, but certainly is a great candidate who we're excited to have fill the big shoes that are going to be left vacant by Matt McVicker. Amanda is an 11-year Air Force veteran. Most recently has been working as the airport director for the Wayne County Airport in Wooster, Ohio. A slightly smaller facility to ours, but similar community size, very similar operational requirements. Matt was actually familiar with Amanda because of some of the involvement at the state level on various boards and commissions that Amanda was also involved in. I'm excited to see her. After meeting all of the candidates, we had a lot of highly qualified individuals, but I think she has the right personality and fit and vision for the airport, understanding where we are today, the importance of having the municipal airport and serving both our commercial services as well as our general aviation but the opportunities that it serves for the community in general. So I think she is excited to come on, and with your approval tonight, would be slated to start in the coming weeks. She did interact with a number of our airport advisory board members who were also very supportive of her appointment, and think she will be a great fit.
Mr. Wilson?
Mayor, will she be relocating to Findlay, do we know?
She will, yes.
Fantastic.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the appointment, say aye. Any opposed, nay. She is appointed.
Letter from Service Safety Director Martin, the Fire Department pumper truck.
Questions or comments? Mr. Wobser?
I'd like to take a second here. We had the first letter that came in. We'll have another letter concerning this topic from Rob. But we met yesterday, the Appropriations Committee met quickly to hopefully take advantage of a situation that Chief Eberly has found us on purchase of a new fire truck. And we're going to be asking that we push this through on 2 readings after the October 5th meeting. However, so Chief or Rob, would you come and give us some additional details on this situation?
Yeah, good evening. As Mr. Wopser said, we had an opportunity that Chief Eberly had presented to him by Sutphin, who is a vendor, fire engine vendor. They had a demo. Each year they build a demo engine, and this is an opportunity that presented itself. It is exactly what our needs are for this department at this time. In 2020 and 2021, we kind of pushed back for various reasons that capital plan of the replacement of vehicles, and it's budgeted for 2022 at a significantly higher amount of money. This is an opportunity where we can spend significantly less, approximately $225,000 less, and get a piece of equipment that's going to meet our needs for the future. So we will be replacing an extinct, if you will, ladder that is not, we really don't use at this time. It sits and takes up space at one of the stations, and replacement parts are hard to come by. Operating it, it's primitive in functionality, as the ladder's actually original manufacturing date's 1974. It has been maintained well. They do a great job maintaining their vehicles in a functional capacity, but this opportunity presented itself, and it just makes sense with the lead times. If we go up to a vendor today and say we want to purchase a vehicle that's not being manufactured at this time, we're looking at 14 to 20 months of a lead time, which it just extends that cycle, if you will. And the inflation rates that they're experiencing now is somewhere between 6 and 9% year over year. So for us to be able to get the piece of equipment that we need that will fit our operational functionality for years to come, replace a piece of equipment that we're not currently practically using at this point at a significant cost savings, that we felt this was a good decision, knowing our financial position.
Mayor? Ms. Mayor?
I was just going to build on one thing Rob said, just so that it's not misperceived. The truck that we would be looking to replace is currently in service. We're utilizing it regularly, but there are some concerns because of it is a 1974 truck that has been updated periodically, but it does not have some of the safety measures and stability measures that the newer trucks have. And so there is a level of concern by our firefighters that if they were truly needing to utilize it to its capacity, that it could pose some safety risks to them. So it is something that we try to avoid using when at all possible. It's still needed and is still functional, but I don't want there to be the perception that we're replacing something that's going to just sit and wait. But it's certainly going to be utilized as needed to serve our community.
Mr. Wobson?
Mayor, thank you. Either you or Rob, just a couple other details. Rob, we're going to sell the old unit, correct? Or put it up for bid. What do we think the value of that antique's going to be?
As discussed, we're really not sure what the market is for this. Historical trends is somewhere between 10,000 and upwards on the high end, optimistically 75,000, but we don't know what that is. We don't know what the market is for that vehicle.
And when, this was conversation we had at the committee, of the whole meeting on our capital budget, when will the payments be due on this? Or when will we take possession?
Anticipated, because it is a demo unit, it's anticipated to be complete in the next few weeks. And then part of the demo deal, if you will, is they go out and parade this around to certain expos. So they're able to show off their product to firefighters and other departments. So we're anticipating a 3-month hold on that. So we wouldn't actually take it. I'm anticipating probably early January. And it is a transaction upon receipt. So we're anticipating the payment due when we receive it in January.
Very good. And last, then, you're not concerned with not having a bid on this?
We actually have this as a state contracted bid, so it's already been established that we're able to utilize this vendor.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Warnicki.
Chief Eberly, did we get that approved that they're willing to wait till the 5th instead of the end of the month?
Yes, we did. I spoke to our salesman about that and about our timeline that we discussed at Appropriations Committee. He was fine with, after the October 5th meeting, he wasn't comfortable going to the end of October, but I told him that I would send him some documentation that you guys will be reading today. And he said that would suffice for him to hold it. That just proves that we're serious about it. So the Appropriations Committee report, and then I'll send in the legislation that you'll have the first reading on tonight. And he said that would be fine.
Well, I just want to make sure, because otherwise we really need to get it done.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Russell.
2 questions, one minor. So when they build out the demo, are they building it out with Findlay markings on it and all that?
That is done when they're done with the demo
Okay.
timeline. So
I just wondered if we were getting a promotional tour out of this as they send it around.
unfortunately not. They wait until right before delivery to do that.
Understood. And then second one, we're replacing a ladder with a pumper. Does that,
Correct.
if the ladder is currently in use, without getting into all your technical firefighting details, tell me why this works.
Yeah, so it's a little bit misleading. The new pumper will go into service at Station 2, where a pumper is currently in service. That current engine 2 will be put in reserve status for the next decade or however long we keep it. The decision to sell ladder 4 is based on kind of the inadequacies that it has, and that's currently in reserve status as well. So we use that only an emergency basis. There's been a number of things that have changed locally that make that less important that we keep in reserve status. There's more availability of aerial devices. Allen Township has a ladder truck. Some other nearby villages have ladder trucks that we could call on if we really have something, big that we need. And we also have another elevated what we call an elevated master stream in engine 3. So that has the telescoping 75-foot ladder on it. That at the time when we had both ladder 1 and ladder 4, which are true ladder trucks, we did not have the 75-foot ladder on engine 3. So I'm not concerned at all from an operational standpoint.
Mr. Wobser.
Chief, the most important question I asked before, what color is it going to be?
Scarlet and gray.
Oh,
All right.
As long as it's not maize and blue. Okay, any other questions or comments? Letter to be filed. Committee reports.
The Appropriations Committee, to whom was referred a request to discuss, man, I can't really read my writing. To discuss the use of American Rescue Plan Act funds. We recommend to continue discussions on the scope of use of the ARPA funds.
I will entertain a motion to accept the committee report. Mr. Wobser,
so moved.
second Mr. Palmer. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the committee report say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Committee report is adopted.
The Planning and Zoning Committee, Findlay Commerce Park rezone, which should have read, the Planning and Zoning Committee, to whom was referred a request from Van Horn Hoover and Associates Incorporated on behalf of property owner KGD Properties and James C. Kohler to rezone lots 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and 9 in the Findlay Commerce Technology Drive from C2 Commercial District to M2 Multifamily High Density. We recommend to approve as requested.
Mr. Slough.
I would move for adoption of the committee report.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the committee report say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The ayes have it.
The Planning and Zoning Committee, to whom was referred a request from Brian Buck on behalf of his father, William Buck, to rezone Madison Avenue Lot 6192, 6193, 6194 from R3 Single Family High Density to C1 Local Commercial District.
Nay? Committee report is adopted.
The Street, Sidewalks, and Parking Committee met on September 7th, 2021 to discuss boulevard right-of-way use. We recommend this request be tabled.
Mr. Slough.
Move for adoption of the committee report.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the committee report say aye. Any
Aye.
opposed, nay? The ayes have it.
A committee of the whole meeting was held on Tuesday, September 20th, 2021 to discuss the executive time proposal from the City Auditor's Office via Ordinance 2021-79, where a system overview was given by Ginger Sampson. All current questions from the administration and council were answered.
Mr. Wobser.
Make a motion to approve.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the committee report say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The committee report is adopted.
Mr. President, before we move on, committee reports, I have a feeling that we did not vote to approve the Appropriations Committee meeting on the fire truck.
Next one.
That's the next add-on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I thought that was first on the
You
list.
can make the motion as soon as you're done, I promise.
My apologies.
The Appropriations Committee, to whom was referred a request to discuss the purchase of a fire engine. We recommend to approve the purchase of the fire truck as specified.
Mr. Wobser.
Thank you. I make a motion to approve.
Second, Ms. Warnicki. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the committee report say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The committee report is adopted. Legislation, we'll start with resolutions.
Second reading for Resolution 18, 2021, a resolution designating certain financial institutions as public depositories for city funds and declaring an emergency.
Ordinances.
Third reading for Ordinance 2021-77, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Findlay, Ohio to accept permanent ownership of 3 properties totaling 7 parcels from the Hancock County Board of County Commissioners as acquired under FEMA FMA fiscal year 14 and FMA fiscal year 16 to the city of Findlay, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Greeno.
Move for adoption of ordinance 2021-077.
Second, Mr. Slough. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the ordinance say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Third reading for ordinance 2021-79, an ordinance authorizing the auditor of the city of Findlay, Ohio to waive formal advertising and bidding and enter into an agreement or agreements with Tyler Technology to acquire additional software and equipment related to payroll processing of the city of Findlay's current Tyler payroll system, appropriating and transferring funds, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Wobser.
Make a motion to approve 2021-79.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Discussion? Ms. Mayer.
Obviously, you saw the report from the committee of the whole meeting that was held yesterday. Just wanted to follow up on that. Appreciate the auditor's office as well as Councilman Wobser and Councilwoman Warnicki attending that to learn a little bit more. Just talk through some questions. Obviously, we appreciate the auditor's office trying to improve processes and limit paper and make sure that we're best serving our employees, and appreciate them taking the time to walk through how that will operationally work with our employees. Certainly, anytime we make changes like that, it's important that we kind of know what's coming down the pike so our employees know what to expect and look forward to working through that process with them. So my concerns have been addressed, and I'm in support of this ordinance.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the ordinance, say aye. If your name is called, those opposed, nay.
Mr. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki? Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Mr.
Slough.
Wobser?
And I voted aye on the last one too, just in case.
You're- He's got two ayes. We're sorry.
Sorry.
The ordinance is adopted.
Third reading for ordinance 2021-83, an ordinance amending chapter 1100 et sec of the codified ordinances of the city of Findlay, Ohio, known as the zoning code, by rezoning the following described property, referred to as the Deer Ridge Mobile Home Park, which previously was zoned MH Mobile Home, to M2 multifamily high density, with a northeast corner of 9.66 acres being zoned I-1 light industrial.
Mr. Slough.
I would move for adoption of the ordinance.
Second, Mr. Wobser. Discussion?
There you go.
Hearing none, all those in favor of the ordinance, say aye. If your name is called, those opposed, nay.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Third reading for ordinance 2021-84, an ordinance amending chapter 1100 et sec of the codified ordinances of the city of Findlay, Ohio, known as the zoning code, by rezoning the following described property, referred to as 812 Tiffin Avenue rezone, which previously was zoned R3 small lot residential to C1 local commercial district.
Mr. Slough.
Move for adoption of the ordinance.
Second, Ms. Warnicki. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the ordinance, say aye. If your name is called, those opposed, nay.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
And Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Third reading for ordinance 2021-85, an ordinance vacating a certain portion of a certain alley hereinafter referred to as the Coventry Drive Vacation in the city of Findlay, Ohio.
Mr. Wobser.
Making a motion to approve 2021-85.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the ordinance, say aye. If your name is called, those opposed, nay.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
And Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Third reading for ordinance 2021-86, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to enter into a purchase agreement for the acquisition of property located within the city of Findlay, Ohio limits and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Slough.
I would move for adoption of the ordinance.
Second, Mr. Wobser. Discussion? Ms. Mayor.
All right, so I'll start by saying that we'll go ahead and vote this down, would be my request. And I'll just give some background because I know that there's been some public questions around this topic. So if you recall back on August 17th, at our August 17th meeting, I had some add-on legislation giving broad approval for purchase of property within the city of Findlay, and we went into executive session to be able to discuss this property. That was requested because the day prior, we had received notice from the Hancock County Prosecutor's Office that the property located at 525 Tiffin Avenue was going to be put up for sheriff's sale on September 14th. And this is a property that is an abandoned gas station that has been an eyesore on our community for quite some time and had gone up for sheriff's sale with kind of no movement on the property. What I wanted to be able to talk to you all about was, is this something that because of its kind of blight in the community that we wanted to step up, take possession of with our, in our position, we have some additional protections that some folks don't, and we are also able to access a lot of the brownfield grant dollars to help clean up the property and then determine if we wanted to get it back in circulation, sell it off, whatever we wanted to do next with that property. And I didn't want to come to you that night, immediately ask you to take action, waive all the readings, and move forward. So we then, at the next meeting, went into executive session and had some additional information from the county. We determined at that time that rather than going to the meeting and trying to bid on the property, that we would let it work through the process. And the next step would then be, hopefully, that the property would potentially be offered to the city and city schools, as is the typical sheriff sale process. So we did not make a bid on the property, given that we did not have authorization to do so. And at this point, no one bid on that property, and we're waiting notification from the county on how they will proceed with that property. So I don't have any definitive next steps. As soon as we receive communication, we will then approach you all on how we may want to act on this property.
Mr. Russell?
Question for the law director, considering this is still a possibility, would be better to table this tonight versus voting it down?
That'd be up to the administration. I mean, we vote it down, we don't have an opportunity maybe to go back into the purchase of.
So just for those watching at home, the law director said that it's up to the administration, that we certainly could table this and then come back in and modify it. I guess my recommendation would be to just go ahead and vote it down so that folks don't feel like they're caught off guard if we then come in at the last minute and are able to change it and wouldn't need any additional readings. I would rather be able to propose legislation, bring up the topic now that it's better public information, and then have at least 1 or 2 votes on the topic at that point.
Are there questions or comments? We have a first and second. All those in favor of the ordinance, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
This is for adoption, correct?
This is for adoption.
Mr. Schindeldecker?
Nay.
Mr. Slough? Ms. Warnicki?
Nay.
Mr. Wobser?
Nay.
Mr. Greeno?
Nay.
Mr. Haas?
Nay.
Mr. Niemeyer? Mr. Palmer?
Nay.
Mr. Russell?
Nay.
Unanimous.
The ordinance is not adopted.
Moving on. Second reading for ordinance 2021-89, an ordinance appropriating and transferring funds and declaring an emergency. First reading for ordinance 2021-92, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director of the City of Findlay, Ohio to waive tap fees for the Blue Bonnet Drive and Bittersweet Drive sanitary sewer project number 356-01200 for 5 years after the project completion and declaring an emergency.
Next.
First reading for ordinance 2021-93, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Russell?
This ordinance is to accept a grant money, and therefore it's common practice that we would suspend rules, and for that reason I would move that council statutory rules be suspended and ordinance 2021-093 be given its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Greeno. All those in favor of suspending the rules, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Slough? Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker?
Aye.
The rules of council have been suspended, and the clerk will give the ordinance its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2021-93, ordinance 2021-93.
Mr. Russell?
Move for adoption.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the ordinance, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2021-94, an ordinance amending chapter 1100 et sec of the codified ordinances of the city of Findlay, Ohio, known as the zoning code, by rezoning the following described property referred to as the Findlay Commerce Park Technology Drive rezone, which previously was zoned C2 General Commercial to M2 Multifamily High Density. First reading for ordinance 2021-95, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Russell?
For reasons stated prior, I move that council statutory rules be suspended and ordinance 2021-095 be given its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Hawes. All those in favor of suspending the rules, say aye. If your name is called, those opposed, nay.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman? Oh, sorry, Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
And Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
The rules of council have been suspended, and the clerk will give the ordinance its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2021-95, ordinance 2021-95.
Mr. Greeno.
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2021-095.
Second, Mr. Russell. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the ordinance, say aye. If your name is called, those opposed, nay.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2021-96, an ordinance appropriating and transferring funds and declaring an emergency. That's all I got.
Any old business? New business? Mr. Russell.
Just advance notice, planning and zoning will meet on Thursday, October 7th at noon. I know I've got at least one case on and probably will have a second by then. P&Z, Thursday, October 7 at noon.
Are you sure that's not the 14th? We look at your calendar just to confirm.
Make it the 14th.
Thank you. Mr. Wobser.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the Appropriations Committee Chair, it's my honor to talk about the fact that our city, and specifically our auditor and his office, received the Ohio Auditor of State Award with distinction for the city of Findlay. And tell you a little bit about this. This is quite a very good award for our city. The letter that came with it states, "It is my honor to be here today," although they're not, on behalf of Auditor State Keith Faber, to present the City of Findlay with the Auditor of State Award with distinction. It is important to note that this award puts City of Findlay in a very select group. The Auditor of State's office audits approximately 5,900 entities, and only 3 to 5% are even eligible for this award. The Auditor of State Award with distinction is presented to local governments and school districts upon the completion of financial audit that meet the following criteria of a clean audit report. Means a complete, comprehensive annual financial report. They have a clean audit with no findings for recovery, material citations, material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, single audit findings, or question costs. They have no other financial concerns. The management letter contains no comments related to ethics referrals, questioned costs less than $10,000, lack of timely report submission, etc. The award represents the hard work of every city employee who strives each day to achieve accounting excellence. I want to recognize the mayor and the council who have done an excellent job accounting for every dollar here in the city of Findlay. I specifically want to recognize Jim Stasiak, city auditor, and his staff for their outstanding leadership, professionalism, and commitment to financial integrity. Job well done. On behalf of this Auditor of State, Keith Faber, I would like to present this to the City of Findlay, the Auditor of State Award with distinction. Congratulations, Jim, to everybody in your office.
New business? Yes, Jeremy.
Yeah, I'd like to request a Streets and Sidewalk Committee meeting as well as a Sewer and Water Committee meeting.
Okay. I'm not sure who's, street and sidewalks, isn't that you, Jim? You want to see if you can come up with a date for your committee, and Randy, isn't water and sewer yours?
about October 5th, 6:30 before our regular city council session.
Does that work for the other?
October 5th, first Tuesday of October.
At 6:30, you said, right, Jim?
Right.
Okay. Mr. Greeno, you've got a proposed date? Okay, all right, we'll get out a notice to everybody. Okay, any other new business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Slout? Second, Mr. Palmer. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye. We are adjourned. Thank you for Troop 338 for being here tonight, guys.